Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Melody. This is I. Today, I speak to an old friend of mine. Her name's Jordin Louise. We met about 12 years ago. We were both auditioning for drama school, and she recently saw that I just launched a podcast. So she reached out to me on Facebook, and she said she wanted to share her story, which I thought was pretty ballsy. Like, yeah, I'll interview you. I'm just getting started, so I need people to interview, and she's had a pretty interesting life. We end up discussing her experience in drama school and what that was like. We then talk about her being in a bad relationship and moving to Saudi Arabia. And I'll save the rest for the actual interview. Here we go. Jordin Louise, welcome to I. I haven't seen you for like 12 years. Whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm in the Tron, otherwise known as Hamilton, Kirikiriroa.
Hamilton in New Zealand. Yeah. So the last time I saw we were auditioning for Unitec. That's a drama school. I think we were both 18. So yeah, it would have been like 12 years ago.
Yep, 12 years ago. Yeah.
And you
freshly 18.
You got in that year, right?
I did, yes.
So you got in that year. What was it like? Mm-hmm. What was your first year at drama school like?
Well, I didn't last the full year. I left in September of that year, 2011. And it was the start of a lot of years of mental struggles.
What sparked it off in Unitec?
So it's university, and it is tertiary study, and it's sort of run like how any other university would be run, with like assignments and credits and all that jazz. But there's the whole idea of a acting student needs to be broken and stripped down, and then rebuilt. And I understand the concept, right? So like you can't necessarily paint a picture until you've got a blank canvas to paint on. So the idea was the actor, becomes the blank canvas. You strip back all of your habits. So I don't know, maybe I walk kind of funny, or when I talk just then, like my lip lifted up. You strip it all back, you become a blank canvas, and then you put the character and the character traits and their mannerisms and their, I don't know, however they move on top of that. But I think that there's a fine line between teaching somebody that to strip themselves back and become that blank canvas to then put a character on top of, and completely demoralizing and bullying and stripping somebody of their confidence and humiliating them in front of their peers. Yeah, basically. And that's what happened to me.
So what was the process like when they were trying to strip you back? Like, what did that look like inside the drama school?
So there was a lot of movement work. And that's what one of the tutors was specialized in, I guess. So obviously this is a long time ago now, so I can't remember all of the sort of specific lessons, but I do recall we were kind of paired up in one particular class. We were paired up, and then we just had to walk around the room as ourselves, simply walk around how we would walk if we're out shopping. And another student had to follow us and mirror the way that we walked, from whether we were pigeon-toed to how much we moved our hips to how rounded our shoulders were, and so on, and which part of our body we led with. So did we lead with our chest, with our chin, with our pelvis? And from that kind of stuff was really useful. Like, so we learned how we walked, basically. You can't see yourself walking, so you don't know if you're walking pigeon-toed or whatever, or what part you're leading with. So that was great. Then there was kind of like this ongoing sort of psychological breakdown as well. And a lot of it, in my case, was, so I ask a lot of questions, and it's just because I simply just want to know more. It's pure curiosity. And maybe sometimes I don't have like great social skills, so I don't necessarily get like the cues of when it might be inappropriate to ask a question, or I've kind of gone off into fairyland a little bit and maybe the answer to my question's already been said. But my asking questions was viewed by this particular tutor as questioning him and his expertise, as an attack on his knowledge rather than me wanting to increase my knowledge. And no matter how much I, tried to explain myself, it got to the point where it was in my reports where Jordin will question the learning and then she will decide if she likes it or not. Never once did I ever tell him that I didn't like the learning. I just wanted further clarification or something like that.
Did you ever get a chance to say that to them, that you were just asking questions to clarify, not question their teaching style? And what happened there?
Yeah, I did, definitely. So I went to him, firstly, directly to the teacher, to the tutor. And he, I don't know, I feel like he had a vendetta against me, but every time I spoke to him, he had a smirk on his face. He was very unapproachable for me. And it was the point where I was like terrified of him, terrified to approach him. And then, when I tried to explain it to him, it was, nope, you do what you like and you don't do what you don't like. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Did any of your peers have the same experience, or did you feel sort of singled out?
I definitely felt singled out. I know that there were maybe 2 or 3 others in the class that had some issues with him, but they were less. One thing I was good at was, despite being a bit shy, was kind of like standing up for myself. Like, it was important to me to speak up, and because I hate being misunderstood. I hate it. And so, that was important to me. And also I was like goody two shoes in high school, like I did all my assignments. I never wagged. I never got in trouble. Like, the most trouble I got in was talking in class because, I can't help myself. But, so the way that he made me feel was like I was a naughty, rebellious student. And that's not me. He completely misunderstood. And, here's an example. One day I had a tuna and rice dish at lunchtime at uni, and it was his class after lunch. And I put a piece of chewing gum in because I didn't want my peers that I was acting face to face with to smell tuna on my breath, right? And I genuinely forgot to spit the gum out before the lesson started. And he saw the gum in my mouth as I went up to do some work with another student in front of the class. Again, I've completely forgotten that it's there, right? And he stopped, and in the most disgusted, most disappointed voice and expression that you could think of, said, "You are chewing gum in my class. How disrespectful. I can't believe you," kind of thing. And then heaps of the other students kind of piped up, "Yeah, that's so disrespectful. Why would you do that?" kind of thing. And then he, months later, wrote it in my report as well. "Jordin is disrespectful. She chews gum in class."
Wow.
So it was fully bullying. It was like full on bullying and harassment of me. And I went to the head of department, and I even went to the kind of like manager of the intake, or like the academic side of it, administrative side of it. And I literally got the answer, "Oh, that's just Pedro. Like, that's not acceptable." Like, it got so bad. It got to the point where I very unwell mentally, and that was affecting my physical health as well. I was in here's another story, was in a massive lecture hall of about 150 students doing various film studies. And I had years later, I found out I had very severe endometriosis. I had absolute severe stomach pain, like blinding pain. And I had to leave the lecture. And so, I quietly packed up my stuff and I snuck down. Pedro's the lecturer, naturally. And I very quietly said to him, and I said, I just have to go to the doctor. I'm sorry. And, went to leave. And in front of these 150 students, he said, get a doctor's note because I don't believe you. Well, 8 years later, I have, fairly invasive surgery to remove this problem and, to allow me to have a child. So, yeah, it was pretty messed up. And it got to the point where, like, I wouldn't say suicidal, but I thought about things like driving my car off the harbour bridge. Yeah. And in the end, it was quit, give up, or give up in another way.
Well, what was the point that drove you to breaking point and decided you needed to leave?
It was, it was just the build up of everything. And it could have just been one tiny thing at the end in September there that broke, the straw that broke the camel's back. I just recall horrible situation after horrible situation after horrible situation. Yeah, it was definitely stemming from this whole idea of, we need to break them.
Sounded like they broke you, but there was never any room or time to build you back up.
No. I learned a lot, but I did not feel built up by that course at all.
And it seems like this teacher, really, really, really just misunderstood and misinterpreted all of your actions. So how did you, once you left Unitech, how did you deal with those feelings of being misunderstood?
It was really hard, and it set off a sort of probably, yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm still suffering the consequences of that first year. I mean, consider I was living in Rotorua, which is, I don't know, maybe the 10th largest city in New Zealand. And I moved, freshly 18 years old, moved out of home to Auckland, the biggest city in New Zealand. First time flatting, first time studying, away from home, having to work to support myself as well, work like 30 hours in a restaurant outside of uni too. So it's that I think was not considered. Like we're kids, no matter how mature we felt at that time, we're children. Like we've just left home. We're just starting out in the world. We're just trying to figure all of this shit out. It's not just school. It's not just uni. There's so much going on. And so it was just this massive chain reaction. It impacted my flatting situation. It impacted my health, my mental health, my flatting situation, my job. I ended up having to quit my job. I then ended up on a benefit at 18 years old. And so I'm feeling like, right, so I have gone from an excellent student at high school to being a university dropout and a beneficiary and a sickness benefit. And I don't want to sound like, oh, this is just, I'm a victim, blah, blah, blah. But what they did was so wrong. And the fact that it was so dismissed, there was never, I'm going and I'm saying I'm being bullied, I'm being harassed, treated unfairly, discriminated against, singled out, and nothing's done about, oh, that's just Pedro, And so, yeah, it impacts me to this day.
So you felt misunderstood and like you got no justice for your situation?
No, nothing. And the other messed up thing is I'm still, and there's nothing that can be done about this, I'm still paying off the student loan from that year at university. So I'm paying for it and I'm paying for it.
How did that affect your early 20s?
Whoa, me.
No, well, we all have difficult experiences. I suppose it's I'm interested in how you dealt with it and how that impacted. Did you find that, did it set you up for any future success? Did it build resilience and you
failures? It definitely, sorry.
No, you go. Like, what did you do after you left Unitech? You went on the benefit. What happened after that? Because you were only 18.
Yeah. What didn't I do? So I went through a series of different jobs, just entry-level basic jobs, call center, data entry. I tried to do some performance work where I could. I did a lot of student short films, acting for them. I did some costume work. So I was Dora the Explorer in the Auckland Santa Parade. That was fun. And I also dabbled in some adult entertainment, which was the best possible thing I could have done.
How so?
So I started working at, I was very shy. Okay. I think I mentioned that. I was very performing. That was my like element. Like I could be on a stage, not feel shy, like super confident. I'm a character. I'm somebody else. As myself, I was very shy, although a little bit like eccentric. So I got into it through a friend. I started doing go-go dancing. So that's not quite stripping, but it's you're in lingerie and pole dancing essentially in like a club kind of setting. And that was at Calendar Girls on K Road in Auckland. And we pretty much didn't get paid. So it was tips based. And some nights I'd go home with literally not $1. But what that gave me was like a huge boost in confidence and self-worth. And you think that kind of work has the potential to do the exact opposite. And I guess that I was quite lucky in that I never had a situation where I felt degraded or demeaned or I'm literally putting my body on display, but not once did I ever feel like objectified directly by anybody, by staff or by customers. I felt admired. I felt revered. I felt wanted, and I was performing. So I was Bonnie. I wasn't Jordin. I was Bonnie. I was a Bonnie lass dancing. I was a character. And so in my element, and that was so good for me. It was so good for me. And it allowed me to form an opinion on adult work performance. So I ended up with friends who were proper strippers. And I say proper strippers because I don't deserve the credit as stripper. You know, these amazingly strong, beautiful girls that worked upstairs in Calendar Girls, like doing full on pole tricks and just the most like really glamorous, the most glamorous way that you can like remove your clothing. You know, they're really amazing. It's such an art. It's such an art and a skill. And I also had friends who were prostitutes as well. And a few of them were doing it to support their studies. I mean, what better way? You're working at night, so you've got your days completely free for studying uni. You don't have to like get a job doing retail or whatever. You're working at night. You only have to work a night or two. And I mean, one girl within a year saved a deposit for a house, and a nice house. And we're talking Auckland, which is a ridiculous housing market.
Did you just stay in the go-go dancer level? What made you not want to move up?
A requirement, which is totally fair enough, a requirement by the clubs that if you move up to be a proper stripper, you have to do lap dances. And for me personally, I wasn't comfortable with that very intimate performance because, you know, with stripping in the club setting, you kind of still have that fourth wall. So you can break it a little bit. You can step down from the stage. You can kind of move over to the tables a bit, but you're still sort of on a stage with an audience. If you go to lap dancing, you're one-on-one behind a closed door. And if you've got the guts to do that and keep it up in that tiny setting, good for you. I didn't.
How long did you stay at Calendar Girls for?
Probably less than a year, but I did go on to work here and there at another club or two. Yeah, doing similar stuff. And then I also did some waitressing in that same industry.
Yeah, okay. And how old were you sort of by the time you left?
By 2021, I, for the most part, stopped doing that work. I went back, I don't know, for fun, here and there kind of thing with my friends for a little boost or just a night out, honestly.
Okay, so you're 21, you're in Auckland, you've left go-go dancing and waitressing. What are you doing now?
I start studying again and I fall for another trap. So yeah, 2014, the year of traps. So I go to UB. It's a design school or a film and animation school, also in Auckland. And there aren't many women that want to enroll there. It's like, it can be quite techie, quite nerdy, quite behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. I come in interested in this course, interested in filmmaking. It's a 1-year certificate to start with. And they're like, ooh, a girl. And we can use her for the other students' short films. And I said, I'm not interested in anything animation. I'm not interested in 3D modeling. I just want film work, like behind the camera. I want to know how to work the damn thing and then edit whatever I film. Okay. And they said, yep. That's like 90% of what you'll do. Well, that was a big fat lie. That was maybe 30% of the work. The rest of it was 2D animation and 3D modeling. And I'm not mathematical minded at all. And I'm not like a visually artistic at all. And I'm not interested in that. And so I was one of 8 students in the class. So their numbers were very low. And I was the only girl. And I feel like they kind of just sold me, whatever I wanted to hear to get the numbers. So I ended up dropping out because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do the animation. I couldn't do the 3D modeling. I had zero background in any of that. And there was very little support that they could offer. So I'm now 21, maybe around there. And I'm a 2 times uni dropout. So on the one hand, I'm feeling more confident coming into myself because I'm sort of learning what I really want and what I really don't want. But at the same time, I'm like way more sort of like disappointed and low. I'm feeling really low again, very vulnerable and down on myself. But that was a really great opportunity for somebody to take advantage of that little 21-year-old 2 times uni dropout girl and sweep me up. And then we had a little bit more of a build up and breakdown situation happening.
So you got into a relationship?
Indeed, yeah. So let's call him Wesley. He started out as being a real gentleman, very chivalrous, very complimentary, very funny, very supportive, very gentle, very understanding. And it was only when I was like enamored and hooked that he started switching. And he would just absolutely beat me down, like say horrible, horrible things to me, like, oh, you're useless, or you can't even do this. I don't love you. I was just using you. And then the next day he would switch, literally like a light switch. Oh, I just felt sad yesterday. I didn't mean what I said. I do love you. Let's get married. Let's have kids. So it was that kind of, it was like an emotional roller coaster, but he did it on purpose. It was very manipulative and yeah, it made me feel stuck and like everything was my fault. I felt really guilty and disgusting. But like,
how did you end up leaving this guy?
So 1 year, his parents moved to Saudi Arabia to work. And after a while, he wanted to go over there and work as well. So they worked in a similar field, he and his family. And he said to me, I'm going to Saudi Arabia. We're married at this point, okay? I'm going to Saudi Arabia. Come if you want. So I, at this point, have started studying again. This is 2017. So yeah, 2017. I've started studying again at Waikato University in Hamilton. And I'm studying theatre studies and singing as well. Singing, musical theatre singing. And I'm loving it. I'm doing really well. I'm fitting in somewhere. And then he throws this at me. And I'm like, well, you're my husband. And whether it means nothing to you, I made a commitment to you. And for some stupid reason, want to make it work. And I don't think it's going to work if I stay here for the next 3 years and study and you go overseas for the next God knows how long. So, of course, I'll move to Saudi Arabia with you. So I now am a 3 times uni dropout. So I leave my study, leave my house, rental, sell my car, quit my job, say goodbye to my friends, leave my pets who are like my kids, and my mum, leave my mum, and I'm an only child, and I go to Saudi Arabia. 2 months later, 2 days before my 25th birthday, we're in the kitchen, and we've got a cat there. We've adopted like a little stray cat over there, and the cat's in the cupboard, like walking on the plates, and I major overreaction, but I yell at the cat, get out of the cupboard, what the hell? And Wesley is standing behind me, and he turns around and he looks me in the eye and he goes, if you're going to act fucking crazy, this is because I yelled at the cat, right? If you're going to act fucking crazy, I'll go and get a divorce right now. And my head went, where are you going to get the divorce papers from, mate? We're in Saudi. But I looked him back in the eye and I said, are you seriously threatening me again? Threatening to leave me or divorce me again? This is not the first time, or even the second, or even the third time. And at that point, I was like, really? You've dragged me halfway around the world to Saudi Arabia, and we all have our own preconceived ideas about Saudi Arabia, whether they're correct or not. But think about me as a woman in Saudi Arabia for a second. I said, you've dragged me here. I've left this, quit that, sold this, and now you're doing this to me? Nah. So that was the moment that I found an ounce of strength and courage for us to end it. And he did. He said, I don't want to be with you anymore. So now I'm dumped in Saudi Arabia.
Can I back up for a second and ask, what was your experience like in Saudi Arabia being a woman?
So technically, for the entire time that I was there, I was still married. So for any other professional woman going over there themselves, they would have to get certain permissions. We're talking expats here, so international workers. They'd have to get certain permissions from their workplace or their, whatever agent got them into the country for things like getting a phone, being able to fly out of the country anywhere, opening a bank account. So these are all things that need to be approved by either an employer or by your husband.
Is this
or
even
your dad.
Is this even for people that aren't like Muslim?
Correct. Yep.
So if you're on a tourist visa and you're like a Western woman, if you go over there, you have the same rights as a Muslim woman.
There's no tourism. Actually, no, that's a lie. Since I left, they are now opening up some, I don't think it's quite as tight as, say, North Korea, but they're now opening up some tourism visas. But you're kind of with a guide, as far as I'm aware. You're kind of with a guide the whole time. You obviously still have to. So when you're there, I'm not sure about the phone cards, but like you wouldn't need a bank account. You wouldn't need unplanned external flights kind of thing. But you'd still need to abide by the sort of cultural dress code. So it's to your wrists and to your ankles. No cleavage, obviously, and it's called an abaya. So it used to be that the abaya could only be black, but they've kind of loosened up recently. So I, for example, had a grey abaya. Yeah. So as a non-Muslim, like I didn't have to cover my hair, for example, and there is kind of this incorrect perception of Saudi Arabia by the Western world. So it's not as bad for women over there as people think. You know, you think, oh, they're so oppressed, they have to wear this, they have to wear that. Well, yes, according to Islam, there are some things that they have to wear, but a lot of the time it's up to the woman whether they wear just the hijab, the hair covering, or whether they wear the niqab, which is where you can only see the eyes. Mm-hmm. So things like that, like the man technically cannot dictate that. But then there is some messed up stuff, which I think is slowly changing. Like, for example, if a Saudi woman wanted a passport, it had to be her husband or her dad or her brother or her son that could apply for it for her. But yeah, right. I think it's changing now. But okay. It really wasn't that bad. And life is just kind of like normal.
So you can still like walk around outside and stuff by yourself?
Yeah, you can walk around. Once upon a time, no, but yes, you can now. Like you just go to Starbucks, you go shopping, you go to work, you get an Uber.
Okay, so let's go back to you.
It's just really hot.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys divorced. How did you end up leaving Saudi Arabia?
So I think dear Wesley thought that I would up and leave after we split up, but I ended up staying for over a year longer.
By yourself?
By myself. 90% of it was because I'd left everything here. What was I coming back to? Over there, I was teaching drama. I was teaching performance, and it was awesome. I loved it. But 10% of me stayed just to piss him off.
How did you get a job teaching drama in Saudi Arabia?
So technically my subject is actually haram, a taboo kind of thing, against Islam. But we got away with it for a while before the school got shut down, because it was an international school. We didn't have to wear an abaya in the school ground unless you wanted to. It kind of operates like how an embassy operates. So once once you're on like the embassy grounds, that country's rules kind of apply, at least culturally.
And when you left Saudi Arabia, what happened when you got back to New Zealand?
Well, I should just quickly mention that when I was over there, I did a lot of traveling, and I'm talking like 15 countries, and a lot of it was by myself. And I got into some really sort of like very dangerous situations and grew a lot, like gained a lot of confidence and sort of self-awareness and everything from that, and self-worth. I did a lot of dating because I didn't really do that before my ex-husband. And
wait, can I just ask back on that dangerous situations? What was one of the most dangerous situations you experienced while in the Middle East? I was left stranded I think about 3 times by Westpac, not able to use my credit card overseas despite having declared what countries I was traveling to. They put a block on my credit card. So one night I was in Sri Lanka by myself, and I had to walk through a really dodgy, slummy, no offense, kind of town, like it was Dodge, and it was the middle of the night and it was pissing down with rain. I had to walk for an hour back to my accommodation because I couldn't access my money to get a taxi. That was one. Another time in Africa, in Malawi, my friend and I, we were there by ourselves. We were in Africa for a month. We went to 4 different countries. It was amazing. But yeah, we got chased by a gigantic crocodile on Lake Malawi, and we went in a kayak. That was genuinely extremely terrifying. Yeah, but obviously we lived to tell the tale. And then other things like I had to get out of a situation where a tour guide was pretty much like molesting me in a pool. Yeah, because I happened to be the only person on that tour. And yeah, other times being touched, just grabbed inappropriately by like in Italy one time, in Rome, by a restaurant manager. It was like kind of late at night, and I was there by myself, and my mum's going to freak if she hears this. But yeah, so he kind of grabbed me and like was trying to kiss me on the neck, and it was kind of down like a dark, quiet street. So, they think they can get away with these things, but stuff like that. Yeah. As a solo female traveller, we sort of have to take extra precaution that men probably don't need to take.
Yeah. Well, that's right. And I feel like I can sort of, not that anyone should ever blame themselves. It's like the short skirt thing, right? Like just because you're wearing a short skirt, it isn't an invitation for somebody to sexually harass you or whatever. But I do feel like I didn't put enough thought, perhaps as I should have, into my safety when I was traveling overseas. But at the same time, why should I? Yeah. So
you said all this like helped grow you as a person. So when you got back to New Zealand,
what did I do?
Yeah.
I like to say I grew some balls. We'll use that phrase. I grew some balls, and I told my current partner, whom I've been really good friends with for several years, since long before I met my ex-husband. I told him we should catch up. I'm back in New Zealand. We should catch up. But before we met up, I said to him, okay, I grew like one testicle because I still had to kind of dance around the subject. But I said to him, what would you say if I told you that back then, as in back before my husband, I blank you? And he got straight away, because he's a smart guy and he knows I'm a bit strange. He got straight away that I meant liked. What would you say if back then I said that I liked you? And he basically responded very enthusiastically. And the rest is history. We're now 3 years, more than 3 years together, and we've got a kid. Not technically married, but I've got a big sparkly ring. So,
congratulations.
Thank
so
you.
Out of all your experiences that you've had in your life, going to Saudi Arabia, being in an abusive relationship, being manipulated in university, how does this all affect your identity and how you see yourself now? Would you say you've come out stronger?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Who knows how I could have been if that university experience hadn't happened. But, if I hadn't gone through all of that, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I wouldn't have my son, who's just the most beautiful thing ever. And I mean, as far as my identity now, it's really hard to answer that, given the fact that I'm still trying to figure things out with motherhood attached. Because that kind of that's an identity fuck.
Well, it takes the focus away from yourself as well. And now it's on somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I've started going to the gym and everything. One thing that I found really difficult with parenting, first time parenting or having a baby, is that your body is not yours anymore. So for there's the 9 months leading up to actually having the kid, it's physically, I felt like I was just walking around in this shell. If you're breastfeeding, I was breastfeeding for several months. Your whole body is growing or feeding or carrying or nurturing this parasite. I say that with love.
Yeah, of course. And do you plan on doing any more acting, drama stuff for the moment, or are you just focusing on being a mum?
Oh, it's always in my head. The hard thing with, and I'm sure you can attest to this, but the hard thing with New Zealand is that there isn't a lot of opportunity. And unless you know someone who knows someone, it's really hard to get work. And the agents here are not, I don't know, they rely heavily, I feel, on sort of online platforms, which you have to pay for. And I mean, if you're not getting any work, auditions, how are you meant to pay this ridiculous platform fee? So it's just tough. And, some people are probably like, oh, excuses. But there's actually this is reality. Yeah. So as far as performance goes, I wish I was doing more, but I also for the first time in my life feel content as well. Not that I don't still have ambitions and aspirations. I've just started studying a small business management course. So I do still do things for myself. I want to do performance things and directing things still, but I don't feel that desperation that I felt anymore.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're in a good place after all you've been through. And content is, rather than desperation, is a really good place to be. I think I'm keen to wrap up there.
Oh, good. Thank you for letting me talk about myself. It was kind of nice to go through things chronologically, and it was good.
Yeah, it was really vulnerable, and I appreciate that. I'm sure the listeners will too.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to get in contact with me, my details are in the show notes, but it's Melody Rachel K. on pretty much every social media platform. All right, I'll see you next week. It's going to be a good one.